All right, folks. Well, let's go ahead and get started with our next panel. And so our next panel is My Sports Career Journey, a Woman's Perspective. And as we all know, the sports industry, like some other industries, is heavily male dominated. And so sometimes it's challenging for a number of people, whether you're a man or a woman, to get into the industry, but particularly for women, it can have its own set of challenges. And so we brought on some women professionals who are leaders in the industry, just to be able to share their unique perspectives about navigating the sports industry as a woman. And then we also have another woman professional who's younger in her career, but who's definitely been charting her path. And she's going to graciously moderate the panel. So let's go ahead and get into our introductions. And so our first panelist is Jessica Leigh-Anne Brown, who's an executive for Global Brand Partnerships with CAA Sports. And Jessica, thank you for coming and welcome. And then next we have Katherine O'Malley Randall, who's a vice president for creative strategy and production operations for the Players Tribune. And Kate, are you on by any chance?
I'm here, yeah. Hi.
Okay, terrific, Kate. Good to see you again, and thank you for joining us. And then we have Neda Tabatabaie. And Neda, I think I probably butchered your name, but correct me, please. But she's the Senior Vice President of Business Analytics and Technology for the San Jose Sharks. Neda, are you on by any chance?
I am, yes. And this is my favorite part of any panels, when people try to pronounce me. Ron, you did a great job.
Oh, thank you very much. I was hoping so. I reached out, obviously, so thank you. All right, and then finally, last but not least, we have our moderator, Jillian Salas, and she's in PR and corporate communications for AAG. And Jillian was a part of an interview project that I did coordinate a couple of years ago, where I asked a group of professionals, actually a group of students, to interview several industry professionals, and Jillian did a terrific job. She was a real pro's pro. So Jillian, are you here by chance?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Ron.
Okay, certainly, Jillian. Thank you very much for agreeing to take this on. And so I'm going to turn the floor over to you now.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for everyone joining us today. I kind of just wanted to start with an anecdote. 2 weeks ago, I was at a different panel related to the college football playoffs. And one of the panelists, she was the AD for the University of Missouri, the athletic director, which is an SEC school. And she was saying people would come up to her always asking, how does it feel like to be a woman athletic director of such a major program? And her response was, well, I don't know how to be a man. And I just thought that was hilarious. But then she went on and saying that she had a student come up to her, because this AD, is of Hispanic descent. And she had a student come up to her who was also of Hispanic descent and would say, I've never met anyone who looked like me in this position, and I didn't know that I can achieve something like this. And I wanted to ask each panelist, did either of you have an aha moment of something of the sort, of you being in your position, and of course being a woman that solidified your career, not your career, but solidified, everything that you worked for, any kind of aha moment like that as well?
Yeah, I mean, I can start with that. It's first of all, I love that response. I might steal that next time someone brings that up to me. But I actually have them often, because I never got into the field to break barriers or pave a path that I didn't know existed. I just kept following what I wanted to do and actively worked towards that. And so I think still every time, even when Ron reaches out, or someone in the company that I work with, or someone that I mentor pulls me aside, like I was at my holiday party last December and someone pulled me aside who I never really spoken to, and said how much I meant to them and inspired them, and, allowed them to keep pushing what their dreams were. It still gives me, chills, because I never set out to really, again, pave the way per se. I just always did what I wanted to do and didn't let most people stop me, which I'm sure we'll talk more about. So I have those moments all the time of like, wow, I'm actually doing something that means something to more than just me, and hopefully can help somebody else, follow suit.
I think, to echo off of Katherine, I have those moments now. Whenever I first started out in my career, when I was working in college athletics, I didn't have that. The women that worked in that office were in administrative roles, executive assistant type roles, and there weren't any executives. And then to go a little bit deeper, another layer, there weren't any executives that looked like me specifically. And so when I got to CAA and I joined this amazing group that I work in, I had the same issue. We had a few female executives, one of them being my boss, who is an amazing mentor to me today. But again, like women executives that look like me was not there. So I tried my best to dedicate a generous amount of my time to showing the ones that look like me, this is possible, you can do this, you can be this person at CAA and look like this. So while I have not had it as much as I would like, I am dedicated to showing the others that it is possible.
Thank you. And
Very
Neda, do you?
similar, yeah, what Katherine and Jessica said. I've started this industry in 2005 in Toronto. And, although I was lucky that we had female executives in the organization at the time, data and analytics were completely new to the industry. And, just imagine the sports world and the technology world and the data world colliding, and there was even fewer women or other minorities in the group that, I eventually ended up working with. And not the overall demographic of the organization, but in general, there are not a lot of women in the data world either. Similar, I was always trying to, it was a role that everybody questioned in a lot of organizations, like what does data going to do in sports and all of that. And then as we grew and sort of solidified our role and other teams started hiring, things changed a little bit. But it was still, I was told in another organization that I worked at that, oh, you're never going to be a VP here. So then fast forward, when I moved here for the Sharks role, that was the first time that I was part of a leadership group of an organization. At the time, I was the only woman in the leadership group of the organization. And we had an NHL meeting there was a session about the women in the NHL, and several women in the organization came up to me and they were like, you should be on this panel. And they started talking to me. And for the first time, and that was 6-7 years ago, wasn't that long ago, I was like, oh my God, people are looking up to me. And it was just a shock. And also sense of like, I'm overwhelmed, all of those things at the same time. And I'm still shocked and also overwhelmed at times. But I think once you recognize that, then it's also, I see it for myself as a little bit of a responsibility to represent. I'm also Iranian Canadian, double immigrant. So there's a lot that there are a lot that goes into that, but you do what you can. I have seen this industry change a lot, and there are roles that now women have, whether it's front office or on the team side, that they would not have had even 5 years ago. So it's all of us collectively have done a lot to change this industry.
Definitely. Thank you guys for sharing. And I kind of want to just go back a little bit for us who might be newer in our careers. What ways have you found that you're able to advocate for yourself as you progress in your own career?
Make noise, like
Yeah.
it doesn't do any good to just be and go with the flow in general, but if it doesn't sit right with you, if it's not something that you want, if it's not in line with your goals for yourself or your vision for your career for yourself, then say something. You're in charge of your own career. And I joke and say my department heads, they love me, but they hate to see me coming because I challenge everything. I'm like that little 3-year-old that keeps asking why. And for me, I think that it makes them smarter. It makes me smarter. It makes me tougher. You gain your respect that way. You don't gain respect just kind of cruising by and kind of flying under the radar. Like you have to be loud and disrupt and make the noise to see change.
Yeah, I echo that 100%. And even not only just being loud, but being prepared and always learn, because people are still learning to see us in those roles. I think it's really the biggest thing for me is that we still have to actively close the gap, and that means you can't be invisible. So however you have to do that, whatever room you're in, it's really important that, as we break those stereotypes, we are sort of overemphasizing our rationale to be there. And it has to be an actual seat at the table, not just a pretend one, right? Like if you're just sitting there because they're trying to cross off some number, some equity, inclusion statistic that they want to have, that's not enough. So you have to really be there, you need to be respected, you need to be included. And for that, you have to really express yourself clearly, and again, be prepared, and yeah, in a sense, be loud and be visible.
Completely agree, but it's important also to say that being loud just for the sake of being loud is not going to take you far. The same way it's not going to take, anybody else far. But knowing your stuff, right? Like hone your skills, have your point of view. And, for somebody like me, you also have to work on your communication skills, right? I'm passionate, I'm fast, I jump through 20 different sentences at the same time, but sometimes I need to slow down and tell the story, and all of that. Those are really important. Finding the place that ultimately is going to give you everything that Katherine and Jessica also mentioned is important. Sometimes you're a place that the changes you want to make and you want to force through is more welcome than the other places. And then also networking. And know other places that I worked with, I had a much stronger network outside of my organization, because not everybody inside of my organization got me, understood me, and that definitely sustained me and got me to a point that I was able to say, okay, these are the areas that I need to work on, and these are the areas that I need to address as a professional to grow in this industry, or really as anything I want to be. And yeah, having your friends and allies and sponsors is really important, but at the same time, completely agree, own your space, know who you are. That's really important, because there are barriers in front of us at times, and just having your values set up right and knowing what is important for you and what you're gonna, what are the things you're gonna change, what are the things you want to try to impact, and what are the things you're gonna walk away from is gonna be really important for you.
Mm-hmm. And I've also heard stories of women that have felt like they've been passed up on different opportunities within their own organization or elsewhere, or they weren't, their conversation wasn't included at the table. When you face adversities like that, how do you overcome those barriers?
Yeah.
I think, being confident in your stuff, to Neda's point, knowing your stuff and owning it and being confident, and then pairing that with making the noise. If you say it with a bit of conviction and you're passionate about it and it's accurate, people listen, and it generates change.
Yeah, and just to add on that, I think it's kindness to me is a superpower. And at the end of the day, if someone isn't listening to you, if you keep going back to them by listening to them, and again, knowing your stuff and be able to present yourself in a way that allows other people to join on, and at the heart of that, you have empathy and kindness, I think it really, it breaks down walls of people over time. It may not be immediate, but you sort of just, in the end, get that seat at the table, because people start to understand that you're also human, and start to respect you in a different manner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm very stubborn, and that's not necessarily a good thing at times, but that helps me, if I channel it in the right way, to just keep on going at something, right? But finding, if you suggest something and it doesn't go far, then it's also a little bit up to me to understand, why was I not answering the right question? Do I need to present this better? Do they need numbers? Do they need look and feel? Do they need a better story? And then sometimes trying to find an ally in the group that you're presenting to. So somebody maybe to amplify your voice, right? If you are in a room together, who's the person to be like, oh, as Neda said, or tell me more about this. Like, what is it gonna be that, if this is an idea that is new or something different, that other people are gonna help me send my message. So sometimes you have to find different ways to go at something. And again, just keep at it, but make sure you have your facts straight, you have your numbers. If it's a business, whatever it might be, again, have your content and have the meat of it ready, so that you're just not throwing something out there because you think it's cool.
Yeah, and definitely I agree with all your responses. I know that with the other adversities that we faced being women working in sports, there's also the pressure or the stigma or the cause of another woman being, really tough on you, like a coworker or a colleague. How do you also evolve when you face something like that?
It's so unfortunate. I luckily haven't had to deal with that for a long time, and I think people have gotten a lot better, but you also have to think, we've all mentioned how when we started, we didn't see people in the room that were like us. And so the people who were in those roles were really scared. They were really scared to let it go, to let someone younger in, because there weren't other opportunities for growth for them. And so it was a lot more competitive in that sense. And I think now we've evolved to a space where it's much more supportive. And so I haven't dealt with that in quite some time, and I'm sure it still exists, but I think luckily we've realized you can't do this alone. And the only way to elevate is to support the woman next to you who's trying to do the same thing or different. But yeah, I think you just have to ensure that you're not isolating yourself by comparing yourself to others, and that competition, while it can be healthy, shouldn't hold either of you back. And eventually that's what it does if you're not supporting other women.
I agree. And I'll add, like, you know, kill them with kindness and do your job like to the very best of your ability, and do it so well that, you know, one day you'll be bigger and better than them. You know, people that are like that, I personally don't think that they get as far as they could if they were better people, you know, to their core. So being kind and, you know, listening to other and respecting different perspectives on whatever the case is, it gets you much further than just doing good work.
I agree. I mean, when I started in this industry, I remember there was somebody specifically that to this date, I'm like, I don't want to be here, right? So hopefully I'm not. But they didn't, there are a couple of different types. I think there's some that just, that's how they were dealt with. So it's a little bit internalized, but at the same time, they always were pushed to be, you have to be part of this boys club to grow. And really that was what they were dealing with. So I have a little bit more empathy there, but then there's some people that are just not nice people and they're malicious and they're trying to take you down. And sometimes even what Jessica says, sometimes even with kindness, right? Like, I'm gonna friend you and then I'm gonna get rid of you. So thankfully I haven't dealt with those, but I know people who have. I think we have learned that growing and, you know, there's more than one spot on the top, and you can supporting together and, you know, rising together is gonna definitely help us all. But at the same time, I think it's important to also recognize that also expecting to just be supported because you're also a woman, that is also the wrong approach, right? Like I always tell people, I don't want to be just treated differently. I do expect a bigger support system from women, but I know there's sometimes I'm wrong, right? And I don't need support. I need somebody to come and tell me, hey, like, get real. This is something you need to do better, which I also consider support, even though I might not like it at a time. But yeah, there's some people that just gonna want to take you down with a smiling on their faces, and you just gotta sort of move past them.
Right. And I definitely want to highlight the importance of male allyship too. I know I've been in a situation where I've had tough women bosses, and when at my job now, I have a male boss and he has my back and supports my endeavors as well. So those allyship is an important thing to have, obviously. How would you recommend that students or people early in their career approach a working professional, especially in your titles and your positions?
We've all been there. You know, we all started exactly where everyone, you know, the 65 people in this group are at right now. We were all students at one point who aspired to have a career in sports. Again, it goes back to having a bit of confidence in yourself, you know, tailor your LinkedIn to be appealing to the Katherines and the Nedas of the world, that so they want to take the meeting, they want to take the call, and they want to know more about you and want to help you navigate, you know, the next step coming out of college. You just do it well, do it with conviction, and be confident in it, and don't be scared to approach the president of CAA Sports and ask for a coffee chat. 9 times out of 10, you know, a lot of them are more receptive to taking the meeting than you think.
For sure, especially if you show a passion for it, like Jessica said, and you know, it's that comes off the page really quickly. So when people message me on LinkedIn, 9 times out of 10, I'm immediately responding saying, yeah, 100%, let's chat and stay connected. And I guess actually probably 10 times out of 10, but for depending on who you're asking in the industry. it's very important. And I think it's just a matter of having that confidence, taking the first step, showing that passion and the leadership that comes along with that is leaps and bounds ahead of where a lot of other students are, and even probably where I was at when I was at that age. So yeah, it just takes a little confidence and maybe some luck, but definitely some passion, and you can get that conversation going, and you never know where it's going to lead.
100%. I don't think I can add anything more to what Katherine and Jessica said. To me, that step of I'm proactive and I saw your job posting or something and I'm messaging you. I took the time to research you, find that you were overseeing this department, and I'm emailing you or messaging you on LinkedIn is huge. One thing I would say about LinkedIn is there's just so much, the inboxes has gotten so overwhelmingly bad pitches that if I don't respond, I probably didn't see it because it was lost in between a bunch of different self messages. But I also do my best to respond to everybody as best as I can. But yeah, just take that step. It's easier than you think.
And I know we have a reoccurring word that the confidence keeps popping up, but I know for me, when I was starting off in my sports career, like I did not have confidence at all. So are there any tips that you guys found that helped you, especially if you're like negotiating a plan or trying to ask for a promotion? What are tips that individuals like us could work on our confidence by?
Well, I think that the
Go ahead,
baseline,
Jess.
I'm so sorry. The baseline of confidence is, knowledge. So being knowledgeable and passionate about whatever it is that you're asking for. If it's a promotion, okay, you can go in there and you have all the bullet points on why you're deserving of said promotion. If you're negotiating a contract, or, I'd spend my time talking to brands and trying to get millions of dollars out of them to sponsor a team or a league. I have to know what I'm selling. I need to know the assets. I need to know the bullet points on the property. What makes this worth, $150 million. If you go in there and you don't have the knowledge, you're not knowledgeable about what you're selling, what you're trying to get out of whatever the case is, you may not get it. You're likely to not get it. So you have to have the knowledge behind it first before the confidence will come.
I think that also, 100%, 110% talking about getting money from people, especially, but you have to also be adaptable, because I think what's really important with confidence is not just being stuck in one thing. You have to be ready to also adjust and be agile to ask the question, the changing needs of the industry. So adaptability and confidence to me go hand in hand. And they're both really, really important, but I think one sort of lends itself very well to the other. So even if you aren't 100% confident in one thing, if you're agile or adaptable to another circumstance, it really can help pave the way or open doors in that way.
Again, completely agree with what Jessica and Katherine said. The only other thing I would add is just know yourself and just be authentic to who you are. We all have different personalities. Some of us are introverts, some are extroverts, some are just loud like me, some are just, just have a different tone. So just don't, and it's funny because we're having this conversation with some of my peers in the executive group, just don't try to be the person that you saw who was, the loud, obnoxious sales guy, for example, or, whatever you see in the movies or the stereotypes. Just try to learn about yourself and who you are more, and then go with that. If you are an introvert, you don't need to be the extrovert loud person, but what are the strengths that you have? Maybe you're more empathetic, maybe you listen better, and, go with that. I know I hear fake it till you make it. I do not believe in that. I think faking it is, for me at least, is very authentic. I definitely see it, but just know who you are, and then you can start building strength based on that. And you're suddenly not going to get from a 0 to 100, right? It's just little steps. And sometimes maybe practice with your friends or your colleagues.
Certainly. Are there any other key lessons that you have found individually just by working in sports?
Sports is forever evolving. It is a moving target. And, back to that adaptability word, you have to be able to adapt. You have to be flexible with the market, depending whatever your job is, whatever your role is in the industry. Like for me, I have to be a little more flexible in the market. I have to be a little more cheekier with the client and say, look, you're not going to get $20 million a year for this asset. We're really going to get about 8. You have to be able to play both sides a bit and not, but also not be fake, and make everyone feel like they're winning.
I think it's also the heart of sports is sports are games, right? Like this is supposed to be fun. Sports are all about communities. It's what a team is. It's what fandom is. We are all in sports because of a mutual passion for something. Don't forget that. I think that the important thing that all of us can do by being in sports together, and no matter what side you're on or team you support, is that you find a sense of belonging and you help other people by sharing that passion. So just, again, be yourself, be happy, but don't let it go so quickly that you don't actually get to enjoy it. This is supposed to be fun. And it's a blessing to be able to work in an industry that's all about games, that brings people together and unifies people versus takes people down, which so many other career paths can do. So enjoy it, and definitely, you know, again, lean on others and build that sense of community around you.
100%. I think, again, going back to values and understanding what your values are and what's important for you is really key, because this industry also has a dark side, right? We all know the stories, hear the stories. Some investments and whatever that's coming into the industry is just, it's maybe not matches my, value set. So it's just important to know what is important for you and what are the type of organization culture you're looking for to join. There are certain places that regardless of how much money they pay me, I'm not going to go to, right? So knowing that is important. And then also know that there are times, depending on the role you have, very likely you're going to see things that you might be disappointed. I know I run into that often, and I'm like, oh, I can't believe we all worked so hard to get here, and then still this thing happened. And those are not necessarily the business side of it. It's just everything you see with the athletes and, the social movements and everything that you see. What I always go back to is, and there are times that I'm like, maybe I don't want to be here anymore, but I go back to, am I in a position that I can make a little bit of a difference in, women in sports, in my community, in a certain, different type of community, whatever it is, and can I do that? And most of the times I go back to the yes, I can. Even some of the work that foundations of the different sports teams do, it's really meaningful. So it does, we all come to work and then you get this different energy from it. And sometimes you get a really bad energy because your team is on a losing streak. So it's just be ready for that.
Mm-hmm. And since just kind of wrapping up here, and I want to go back to the AD, her lasting piece of advice was never leave a room without anybody's contact, or try to at least get one person's contact before you exit a panel or you exit a networking event. Do you three have any lasting piece of career advice for our guests?
I would say work hard and play harder. This is meant to be fun. We have a good time, but we also work really hard. And once that pays off, we party harder.
I feel like, Jessica, we need to meet up next time I'm in the city, but I'll message you offline. I think also one of the things that's really important is look at the makeup of the company that you're looking to join, because there is a thing called a glass cliff. I encourage all of you to look at it. Sometimes people, women, minorities are hired in roles that they're doomed to fail. So if you don't see people that look like you in senior leadership, not just in management roles, not just in back office, but in senior positions on the board, C-suite, maybe think about somewhere else, or make sure that you still have a clear pathway of growth within that company and they're planning to change it for you and those who come after you. You need to, hedge your bets a little bit and don't go all in on somewhere that's not willing to support you in the long run.
Yeah, 100%. I don't want to repeat the values and, the culture part. So those are definitely important. Just again, knowing what's important for you and don't necessarily going with the flow because everybody else is doing this behavior or doing a certain thing. And then the other thing I would say is just, it's okay to fail. If you're failing, fail fast and learn from it and then move to the other thing.
Okay, well, thank you so much, everyone. Ron, do you have any other questions that I might have missed at all?
No, Jillian, you did a great job as usual. And I just have to say, my wife, I mentioned this to you last year, but my wife had a chance to hear you moderate a panel last year, and she was just raving about you. And so you would do an excellent job. So thank you very much for agreeing to do this. And then Jessica, Kate, and Neda, thank you so much. Your you're leaders in the industry and I know you're busy, you're doing important work, but I really appreciate you taking the time out to invest in the next generation, and the information that you shared, I know is going to benefit the students a lot. And I'm definitely looking forward to continue to have you all involved and just being able to share your expertise and insights with more students as we move along. But thank you.